I am Ken Justice. I've always had a strong sense of justice, or rather, I have a personality that can't tolerate anything wrong. I am well aware that there are times when it's better to keep quiet and let things settle down, but I can't help but speak up in the moment. This personality has not changed since I was a child, and although I have tried to change it, it never really works out. As a kid, I moved several times for family reasons, and at each school, I had friends who were friendly to me when I first transferred. But they soon leave me because they find my personality troublesome. I would inevitably end up cautioning against things like occupying the playground equipment or littering. It seemed that being cautioned against things they did without any ill intent or as a small prank was offensive to them. They all called me Grumpy after my personality and last name. When I started to work, I encountered difficulties in human relationships and things didn't go well. I searched for a job where I could work individually to avoid issues with human relationships. And now, at the age of 29, I work as a taxi driver. One day I picked up an elderly man dressed in an expensive-looking suit in the city center. The destination he told me was just down the street we were now, but unfortunately, the traffic jams were really bad at that time. When I asked if it was okay to take a little detour to avoid the traffic, the elderly man kindly agreed. "You seem to know the roads around here well. Are you a local?" "No, I only lived here for a few years when I was in elementary school, and I recently moved back. I was surprised to see that the roads had changed in many places when I first returned." The elderly man was talkative and a good listener, and I, who can't easily lie, ended up sharing my life story. As my surname, Justice, suggests, I have never been able to ignore mistakes or wrongdoings since I was a child. When I lived in this town, my nickname was Grumpy. Then, for some reason, the elderly man looked surprised and then fell silent. I wondered if I had said something strange, but then the elderly man suddenly clutched his chest and started to struggle for breath. He is pale, breathing heavily, seems to be having some sort of seizure. In a panic, I called 911, and as I talked, I regained my composure and remembered that there was an emergency hospital just around the corner. I loosened the elderly man's clothing, performed as much first aid as I could, and kept talking to him. And so I rushed the elderly man to the hospital and ended the day hectically. A few days later, a gift of sweets and a thank you letter arrived at the taxi company I work for from that elderly man. My colleagues are curious to know what happened as they pick up the high-end confections wrapped in department store wrapping paper. Most of them reacted with a, "Oh, I see," as if such incidents were common in this industry. However, I myself had no idea that this event would later turn out to be a miracle. When I saw the sender's name on the letter, I was so surprised that my eyes nearly popped out of my head. After all, it was the name of the president of a major company that everyone knows. And the content of the letter made me even more surprised and frightened to death. He wanted to treat me to a meal in return for my help, and he had written the location and date of a high-class restaurant that I thought I would never have a chance to go to. I felt bad for being treated so well just for doing what was right, and I even considered declining, but I had no way of contacting him. I kept worrying that it would be weird to contact the company for personal reasons, and before I knew it, the appointed day had arrived. I figured I had no choice but to go, so I scraped together all my savings, wondering if I could at least pay for my portion, and stuffed all my money into my wallet before heading to the promised restaurant. When I entered the room I was guided to, feeling nervous, the elderly man from that day was there, along with a woman with neatly tied long black hair. Seeing her dressed in a refined kimono that matched the atmosphere of the restaurant, my heart started to beat faster for a different reason than just nerves. I found out that she was the elderly man's daughter and was about the same age as me. Knowing that we were close in age, I felt a sense of affinity towards her. But then the elderly man said something unbelievable. "Justice, would you be interested in having an arranged marriage with my daughter? I brought her here today with that intention." With me? I was surprised. What is he thinking? It's too sudden, and there's no way I could match her. She's the president's daughter. I came here with that intention as well. Huh? Are you okay with that? Honestly, having a meal with a young lady is an experience that I won't be able to have again if I miss this opportunity. She doesn't seem to be forced to say it, so she must have really come with that intention. Although it was an incredibly sudden proposal, I decided to take up their kind offer and have a dinner with her. I thought she would be quiet and reserved, but surprisingly, she actively engaged in conversation. According to her, her father usually travels by company car, but that day it happened to be in for repairs. She apologized, saying it was regrettable that he fell ill on such a day and caused so much trouble for me. No, not at all. It's not like you can choose when you get sick, so please don't feel that way. Thank you. You really are a kind person. At that moment, for some reason, I felt like I had seen her somewhere before, but I couldn't remember where. Have you met somewhere before? But all she said was, "You think so?" with a smile. During the meal, she wanted to hear about my childhood. Like father, like daughter, she also liked to talk and was a good listener. I decided to tell her the same story about my past that I had told her father in a taxi. So that's why I was called a sourpuss when I was a kid. She then smiled warmly. Yes, I know. I was stunned by her unexpected response, and then she started telling her own story from the past. My father's company is big now, but when I was a child, the business was not going well. We were very poor. I could only wear the same clothes all the time, and the neighborhood kids used to make fun of me. I was surprised to hear that she had gone through such a time and listened carefully. One day, there was a boy who stood up for me. He told me that if I didn't like being made fun of, I had to say I didn't like it and tell them to stop. I had heard that story somewhere, unable to remember. Then she said, that boy was also called a sourpuss by the other kids. Seeing her smile again, I remembered who she was. There was a small park on a road I took on a whim when I lived in this town. In a corner of that park, a group of brats were hurling insults like dirty and smelly at a crouching girl. I couldn't stand their grinning faces as they spat out insults, so I stepped in between them and the girl. "Stop it! It's not funny to make a girl cry." Some of the brats knew me and ran away, saying, "Oh no, it's the sourpuss! Run!" I ended up fussing over the crying girl. Those guys always pick on people who don't fight back. If you don't like being made fun of, you have to clearly say stop instead of crying. Still uncertain, the girl shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "If they don't stop, even after you say stop, I'll come help you again." When I said that, she stopped crying and smiled relievedly. Soon after, I ended up having to move, and I left the town without ever going to that park again. The girl from that time, I never thought she would become such a beautiful woman. Actually, I was concerned about the girl for a while after that, but at some point, I couldn't remember her. I had completely forgotten about it until now, but for some reason, I felt very happy. When I heard that the taxi driver who helped my father when he collapsed was nicknamed Grumpy when he was a child, I thought, for sure, he was the boy from that time. Because you protected me and gave me courage at that time, I am who I am now. I always wanted to meet you again, and thank you. I always have been disliked by the people around me and was always told I was a meddler, so I have never been thanked. I myself was struggling with the idea that I needed to change my personality in order to get along with others. So I never imagined that someone would remember me in this way. I thought for the first time that I had to be brave myself because you told me so. If you hadn't been there, they would have teased me for one reason or another, even after I'm no longer poor. No, I just did what was natural. But no one else helped me. Also, you helped my father. No, it's nothing special. It may be natural for you, but I think it's not something everyone can do. Justice. You are a kind and courageous person. I think my father felt the same way, so he provided an opportunity for us to have a dinner. At those words, my eyes naturally became hot. I felt as if I was being saved by the girl I had once helped. After that, we started to have meals together occasionally and got to know each other little by little. I was attracted to her frequent laughter, and I confessed on one of our dates that I wanted to date her with marriage in mind. I was amazed at myself for only being able to come up with a stiff line at a time like this, but her reply was the biggest smile I've ever seen. And so we officially started dating, and when her father found out, he said he wanted to hire me as his personal driver to make use of my taxi driving experience. I had no reason to refuse, so I gladly accepted and changed jobs. From my past bitter experiences, I was quite anxious about whether I could work as a company employee, but for now, I'm managing somehow. My colleagues teach me in a way that is easy to understand even though I'm old, and just like a new graduate. And above all, the corporate culture that puts employees and customers first is very comfortable. According to the president, the bigger the company gets, the harder it is to value employees and customers. And he thinks that inflexible and serious personnel are needed to maintain that. I'm hoping that eventually you will become my son-in-law and someone who will contribute to the company. Can you fully utilize your strong sense of justice here? I never thought that this personality, which has been a source of worry for me, would be wanted by someone or be useful to others. I may have been born with this personality for the sake of this father and daughter. I feel so saved by the two of them that I seriously think so. Later, I married her and became a son-in-law. As a result, my last name is no longer Justice, but the content is still as stubborn as ever. I went from being the president's personal driver to an employee. I am slowly being promoted. Thanks to the elderly man, no, my father-in-law's arrangements, I have started to show my face at the company's board meetings, and my presence seems to be a good deterrent to prevent the executives from doing as they please. I don't know if it's true or not. Even if I don't have a title, and even if my employment history is short, I, who will speak out clearly, may be disliked by other executives, but if it's for the company's sake, I'm happy to do so. And to my beloved wife and me, a healthy boy was born. My son, who turned 2 in the blink of an eye, loves the red hero of the Sentai heroes. He always carries a red figure with him, and together with the heroes on TV, delivers punches of justice to the villains. My wife laughed at my strong sense of justice must have been inherited. It might be. After all, I admired the red Sentai heroes since I was little. Even if my son grows up to be as stubborn as me, I want to teach him that his personality is not bad at all, and it can be helpful to others. If I hadn't found her at the park that day, if the company car hadn't been sent for repair that day, if I hadn't told the elderly man about my situation, many coincidences overlapped, and over a long time, a connection was made. I hope this precious connection will continue forever. To protect my wife, my son, and the company, I will continue to be stubborn.